Hi, I'm District Court Judge Tom Jarrell. I want to take a moment and talk with you about what a judge expects from you in your custody action. Probably the most important thing that we expect from a parent in a custody action is honesty. We need you to be honest with each other, we need you to be honest with the court, and importantly, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest with yourself and make sure that you have a reasonable expectation of what the outcome of your case may be. Now, you'll have an opportunity to have some of the best mediators in the state of North Carolina handle your case. You'll have an opportunity to get your side of your story out with the mediator and be able to have that mediator fashion a plan that will work for you, your child, and the other party. If mediation fails, you'll have to come to court. Now, as the other judges have said, you don't want to come to court and allow a stranger to determine what your custody situation will be, because we don't really know you. We don't know your preferences, your schedule, we don't know your children. You know those things, and you alone can decide what's best for your child. In a way, the judge's job is very different than anyone else in the courtroom in determining what to do with a child in a custody case. My job is not to look after you, the parent. My job is not to look after your attorney or anyone else in the courtroom. Our oath of office is very clear. Our job is to look after the best interest of the child that is the subject of the case. What we're looking for in a custody action are who's being honest with themselves, who's being honest with the other party, and who's being honest with the children. It's important to remember that what you tell your children is vitally important. Parents have a tendency to try to build themselves up by making the other parent look bad. The problem with that is when those parents speak ill or poorly of the other parent to the child. Children realize when they get to be 7, 8, 9, 10 years old that half of me is mom and half of me is dad. And if dad is really all that bad, or mom is really all that bad, then I must be too. You know, as a judge of almost 14 years, I've had the benefit of hearing many child psychologists testify in court. Folks with lots of money hire child psychologists to come to court, interview the children, and then tell the judge their opinion of what that child may need. And as a judge that's heard probably thousands of those cases, I can say that the child psychologists generally all say the same thing. They all say that if you want to raise a child with self-esteem problems, relationship problems, emotional problems, not just now while they're young, but their entire life, then keep speaking ill of the other parent. It's a common thread. We see it in almost every courtroom in the entire building. Most of the judges that hear your cases in custody court see and do other courts, and we see the same families in many different courts. When we have a case involving a child whose parents have been really making the other parent look bad and making the child feel like they have a bad parent, then we see that child grow up and have emotional difficulties that lead them back to the courthouse door. We see them in juvenile delinquency court. When they reach the age of 16, we'll see them in criminal court. Sometimes, unfortunately, we will even see them in the Department of Social Services, Abused, Neglected, and Dependent Children's Court. It's a sad sight. About 13 years ago, I had a case involving a couple that had so much animosity in their family. They basically hated each other more than they liked their children. And we see that coming. You can see it walking in the door when the parties hate each other more than they love their children. The subject of this case was a young man. He was about 8 years old, and his sister, who was 6. And it was one of the most difficult cases I've had to decide because the parents so hated each other, they lost sight of why they were there. They lost sight of the fact that they too need to do what's in the best interest of their child. I made the best decision I could. Involved family members, involved counseling, made the parents jump through lots of different hoops, different services were provided, and then moved on to the next case. Well, 10 years later, I'm in the courthouse, downstairs, getting ready to get on the elevator, and a young man approached me. He said, "You're Judge Jarrell, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am. Who are you?" And he stuck his hand out, and he told me his name. I instantly remembered who he was. He was 18 years old at that time, getting ready to go off to college. And I said, "Well, what are you doing here in the courthouse?" And he said, "I came to read my parents' file." It was sobering for me because I didn't realize that the children of these cases later grow up and want to see what's in their parents' court file. And it's public record. They have every right to call the clerk's office and order the file, and some of the files are so thick with unbelievable statements that the parents have made about each other and made about the children in the case that it would really break your heart. Think about that. Do you want your child reading your court file? Would you want your child, when they grow up, seeing what you have to say about their parent, the other parent? I don't think you do. Now, as a judge, we're looking for the parent who is most likely to put their animosity and the difficulties from the relationship that they had with the other parent aside and move towards doing what's in the best interest of their child. That's what we're looking for. If that's you, then that will come out very clearly in your custody action. Right now, all of you have a thin court file. Try to keep it that way. The only way you can keep it a thin file is to not file so many motions, is to not go to court, but to settle your case in mediation. We thank you for your time.